We are entrusting the day and the endeavor to the Lord. Let's go. Welcome to my channel where I visit many good books, but live in the Bible. My name is Sarah Christine, and today I would like to talk about Douglas Coupland's Life After God. I picked this up for a grad school class on faith, doubt, and redemption in literature, and I did not really know what to expect going in because with a title like Life After God, my mind went to Nietzsche's God is Dead. I actually like that book, but my point is I expected a lot of prickliness towards the idea of God, or at least a strong sense of God's obsolescence, which just goes to show you should not judge a book by its title. A brief summary of the book, Life After God, is the story of one man, Scout, as he tries to navigate anxiety, loneliness, and relational collapse as a member of the first generation raised without God. All of which is hard to do because, as the back of the book says, we are creatures with strong religious impulses, yet they have nowhere to flow in this world of malls and TV, craft dinners, and jets. Scout's life is shown to us in a series of vignettes that features Superman, would-be illegal cats, spontaneous baptism, and his group of friends known as the former fetuses as they try to thrive, or frankly, survive in a culture that is, quote, stuck on fast forward, a culture seemingly beyond God. I had never read anything like Life After God before, and it moved me in ways I didn't expect, and there were certain passages that were so poignant, I'm planning to memorize them. I've included one in this video at the end for the sake of delayed gratification. I also really loved that there were doodles done by the author, if I can show them to you. Can you see them? Some of them? Yeah, typically as chapter headers, I so admire people who can draw because I can never commit to a line in, handwork, which is why I paint instead. Like I got these jeans. Crush the Devil's Head, Romans 16:20, amen and amen. All that said, I really enjoyed this book and I recommend it, particularly because I think in Scout we see two fears and two challenges that most people will experience if they are living a life after God. And so, that said, let's press on. The first fear that comes with living a life after God is the fear of always being on the move, but going nowhere. And on page 147, this is what Scout says. When you're young, you always feel that life hasn't yet begun, that life is always scheduled to begin next week, next month, next year, after the holidays, whenever. But then suddenly you're old and the scheduled life didn't arrive. You find yourself asking, well then, exactly what was it I was having, that interlude, the scrambly madness, all that time I had before? Throughout Life After God, Scout thinks to himself and encounters a lot of other people who, like him, are frenetic, always on the move, but they're also adrift. They're caught up in a lot of movement, but making no progress. A bit like if you've ever seen the Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson film, The Internship.
You're saying a lot of words really fast that mean nothing.
They're in a rat race with no horizon, either because the goal of the big cheese always seems to recede to the next thing, or because they set out without even knowing what they ought to seek. On page 202, after abandoning his car in the middle of nowhere in a desert because Scout does not want to get caught with narcotics, he comes across a man, a quote, desert rat, who's just drifting, and this is what Scout thinks. The drifter didn't even question the fact that a person might be walking lost in the desert at night, as though lost strolls were the most natural activity on earth. There's a popular quote by J.R.R. Tolkien that says, "Not all who wander are lost," and fair, but I happen to agree a little bit more with the drifter that lost strolls are incredibly common. In fact, a couple Christmases ago, I got someone very close to me who has a reputation for wandering off in Costco parking lots, a little keychain that says, "Not all who wander are lost, but some are."
Discovered recently from Tolkien, "Not all who wander are lost," but I added on the other side, "but some are." Yay!
Yes, indeedy. Not all who wander are lost, but some are. In fact, the Bible tells us in Matthew 7:13 that most people are on lost strolls in a broad lane that will eventually lead to a great deal of brokenness and pain, which unfortunately is Scout and frankly a lot of his friends' case. On page 309, this is what Scout confesses. Some facts about me. I think I am a broken person. I seriously question the road my life has taken, and I endlessly rehash the compromises I have made in my life. I have an unsecure and vaguely crappy job with an amoral corporation so that I don't have to worry about money. I put up with halfway relationships so as not to have to worry about loneliness. I have lost the ability to recapture the pure feelings of my younger years in exchange for a streamlined narrow-mindedness that I assumed would propel me to the top. What a joke. When I read that, I was like, dang. But I think that is the end of always being on the move, going nowhere. You'll run around your whole life and never arrive. And then when your time is up, all you'll be left with is a lot of sweat that you regret, disillusionment, and bitterness. That is the Life After God track. And if you want an alternative, because I don't recommend bitterness, disillusionment, sweat that you regret, I point you to the Bible in 1 Corinthians 9:26, where we are told that Christians do not run aimlessly. No, we have our eyes set on Christ and on the James 1:12 crown of life that God has promised to those who love him. And we are exhorted in Psalm 119:32 that as we run in the way of God's commandments, he will enlarge our hearts so that by the time we get to the end, we're not going to be bitter. We're not going to be disillusioned. We're not going to be soaked in sweat that we regret. No, we're going to be all the more kind, all the more compassionate, all the more loving as we run after Jesus. Which brings me to the second fear that goes along with living a life after God, and that is the fear of feeling less. On page 175, Scout thinks to himself, I had recently begun worrying about my feelings disappearing more and more, noticing that I had seemed to simply be feeling less and less. These worries became more focused and stronger as I was driving. I felt like I was turning into a reptile, an iguana sitting on a rock with a decaying memory and no compassion. Several times in Life After God, Scout and a fair few of his friends express the fear that they're feeling less. This is true in general, but it's particularly true in their romantic relationships. All their hearts drain, and it's letting all their feelings leach away. I think that can be explained if we look to 1 John 4:19, where we are told that we love because God first loved us. We see there that God's love is the source, is the battery of all our affections. And so it's no surprise that Scout and his friends, again, living a life after God, who were raised without God, were never plugged into that source of love, are decades in running out of affection to give. Just a few pages later, Scout begins to intuit his way towards this, and he thinks, I was wondering what was the logical end product of this recent business of my feeling less and less. Is feeling nothing the inevitable end result of believing in nothing? I began to wonder what exactly I had believed in up until now that had allowed me to reach my present emotional circumstance. This is not an easy thing to do. Precisely articulating one's beliefs is difficult. My own task had been made more difficult because I had been raised without religion by parents who had broken with their own paths and moved to the West Coast, who had raised their children clean of any ideology in a cantilevered modern house overlooking the Pacific Ocean at the end of history, or so they had wanted to believe. We see there that for Scout and for many of his friends, the decision to believe, or rather not to believe, was made for them by their parents, which is actually pretty common. I'll put a clip below, but one of my role models, Christian apologist Dr. John Lennox, had a debate that went viral several years ago with the famous Princeton atheist, Dr. Peter Singer, where sort of in the introductory remarks, Dr. Lennox mentioned that he had been raised by two believing Christian parents in Ireland, and Peter Singer was like, well, that's kind of my issue with religion. People just stay in the faith that they were raised in. It's like indoctrination. And at that point, Dr. Lennox sort of turned to Peter and he said, well, Peter, were both of your parents atheists? And Dr. Singer was like, yes, they were. So Dr. Lennox said, oh, so I see that you stayed in the faith that you were raised in. And Peter Singer goes, it isn't a faith. And Dr. Lennox said, oh, I'm sorry, Peter. I thought you believed it. That was the moment that went viral all over the internet because Dr. Peter Singer, this famous Princeton philosopher, didn't realize that he also had a faith inheritance, even if it was from atheists. And like Peter Singer's parents, Scout's mom and dad in Life After God made the decision to cut the cord of religion when raising their kids. But unlike Peter Singer, Scout is not a contented atheist. He feels acutely that something has been lost along the way, that in a sense, he's been religiously disinherited, tossed into the universe like a baby into deep water with no instructions on how to swim. Which brings me to the first challenge that people, and particularly Scout, faces in living a life after God, and that is the challenge of how to relate to reality. On page 273, Scout reflects on the lives that he and his friends, aka the former fetuses, have lived being raised without religion. And this is what he thinks. Ours was a life lived in paradise, and thus it rendered any discussion of transcendental ideas pointless. Politics, we supposed, existed somewhere in a televised non-paradise. Death was something similar to recycling. Life was charmed, but without politics or religion. It was the life of the pioneers, life after God. A life of earthly salvation on the edge of heaven. Perhaps this is the finest thing to which we may aspire, the life of peace, the blurring between dream life and real life. And yet I find myself speaking these words with a sense of doubt. I think there was a trade-off somewhere along the line. I think the price we paid for our golden life was an inability to fully believe in love. Instead, we gained an irony that scorched everything it touched, and I wonder if this irony is the price we paid for the loss of God. But then I must remind myself, we are living creatures. We have religious impulses. We must. And yet, into what cracks do these impulses flow in a world without religion? It is something I think about every day. Sometimes I think it is the only thing I should be thinking about. In C.S. Lewis's phenomenal essay, Talking About Bicycles, he uses the experience of riding a bike to talk about the, quote, 4 ages that human beings typically have when they relate to reality. And this is what he says. I think there are these 4 ages about nearly everything. Let's give them names. They are the unenchanted age, the enchanted age, the disenchanted age, and the re-enchanted age. As a little child, I was unenchanted about bicycles. Then when I first learned to ride, I was enchanted. By 16, I was disenchanted, and now I am re-enchanted. For Scout, he grew up cushy and safe, but in a disenchanted age, in a life after God, where people's relationship to reality could have come from Monty Python.
Life's a laugh and death's a joke, it's true.
And now, as an adult, Scout is struggling to find a sense of purpose and meaning and depth using the disenchanted terms that he has inherited amongst the gaps and the cracks that scorched earth irony has left, all the while feeling, like he says on page 344, an unshakable sense that the undiscovered world is indeed larger than the world we think we know. It is enough to make a man cuckoo banana pants trying to re-enchant himself on his own because everyone has told him that he lives in an age, in an era of disenchantment. And here I want to share a poem by Hugh Clough called There Is No God, the Wicked Saith, because I think it does a really good job of articulating the different ways people try to relate to reality on their own terms. And I think it does a good job of articulating how re-enchantment tends to work. And it goes like this. There is no God, the wicked saith, and truly, it's a blessing. For what he might have done with us, it's better only guessing. There is no God, the youngster thinks, or really, if there may be, he surely didn't mean a man always to be a baby. There is no God, or if there is, the tradesman thinks, 'twere funny if he should take it ill in me to make a little money. Whether there be, the rich man says, it matters very little, for I and mine thank somebody are not in want of victual. Some others also to themselves, who scarce so much as doubt it, think there is none when they are well, and do not think about it. But country folk who live beneath the shadow of the steeple, the parson and the parson's wife, and mostly married people, youths green and happy in first love, so thankful for illusion, and then caught out what the world calls guilt in confusion. And most everyone, when age, disease, or terror strike him, inclines to think there is a God, or something very like him. I love that poem. I think it does a really good job of articulating the different ways that people will try to relate to reality on their own terms. And I also think it does a good job of showing how re-enchantment works, because I 100% agree that when age, disease, or terror strike him, a person does incline to think there is a God or something very like him. It is usually trials and tribulations that precede re-enchantment. That's certainly true in Scout's situation, but it is not age, disease, or terror that strikes him. It is abandonment that is the catalyst for his re-enchantment. Which brings me to the second challenge that comes with living a life after God, and that is searching for home when love is gone. On page 137, Scout makes an admittance. And here's why my mind is all over the place. Your mother left me a week ago, and she took you with her. Midway through Life After God, Scout reveals that he has had the rug pulled out from beneath his feet because his wife, who he loves, has taken their little one and left him, just split. Scout tries to reason with his wife and get her back, but she is as adamant as Margot Robbie's character, I think the Duchess, in The Wolf of Wall Street.
I don't love you anymore, Jordan!
She's not coming back. In the aftermath of her desertion, Scout doesn't know where to go. He has lost his wife and child, and with them, his sense of home. And so, he hits the road. Eventually, Scout's mama gets in touch with him and tells him not to worry. This is totally normal for couples, and it's sad, but it's survivable. And she says on page 154, first, there is love, then there is disenchantment, and then there is the rest of your life. And I say, but what about the rest of your life? What about all the time that remains? And she says, oh, there's friendship, or at least familiarity, and there's safety. And after that, there's sleep. I think to myself, how do any of us know that it's going to end up like this? That this is all there was maybe going to be? I say, oh God. And my mother says to me, honey, God is what keeps us together after the love is gone. When I read that, I had to read it and reread it again and think about it, because at first brush, it just sounds like God puts people under loveless house arrest, like he takes them hostage, which can be the case. I mean, if you read the story of Jonah, there was a man who was taken hostage because he did not want the Ninevites, who he hated, to be saved. So there you have a loveless house arrest situation. Whale arrest situation. But anyways, if you read to the end of Life After God, and if you read the Bible, I think the definition can be broadened. Because yeah, God can keep two people in a house together, but he can also wrap his arms around the one who has been unloved and made bereft and keep them from falling to pieces. How's that? Well, we are told in 2 Samuel 23:5 by King David, on his deathbed, no less, is not my true home with the Lord, for he has made with me a permanent covenant, ordered and secure in every way. That's the best definition of home that I know. It is a place full of love, permanent, where people stay. They don't just cut out on you one day. And it is safe. It is ordered and secure in every way. I think everybody needs such a place that is full of love. We're told, 1 John 4:8, that God is love. So where he is, love will be there also, and it's permanent. He's not going to cut out on you. Hebrews 13:5 tells us, I will never leave you or forsake you. It's going to be safe. We are told in Psalm 125:2 that as the mountains surround Jerusalem, so the Lord surrounds his people. Like, ring security, watch out. The Lord has better security. Let's just put it that way. But at any rate, in Life After God, that is certainly Scout's case, that he needs a place that is full of love, permanent, ordered and secure in every way, because by the end of this book, pretty much everyone has unloved him and left him. And at the end of the book, this is what Scout says, and this is the part that I hope to memorize. Now here is my secret. I tell it to you with an openness of heart that I doubt I shall ever achieve again. So I pray that you are in a quiet room as you hear these words. My secret is that I need God, that I am sick and can no longer make it alone. I need God to help me give because I no longer seem to be capable of giving, to help me be kind as I no longer seem capable of kindness, to help me love as I seem beyond being able to love. It took a fair bit of wandering, but Scout got to God in the end. And if you too feel like Scout did in any way, whether that's by being adrift, emotionally reptilian, disenchanted, or feeling unloved and or homeless, I pray that you turn to Jesus. He is the best, the best, the best. And we are told in Matthew 11:28, come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that this was edifying, encouraging, and entertaining, and I hope you will continue to join me as I visit many good books, but live in the Bible. After like a month of pink eye, RSV, and finals, we doing the thing. The coughing.